Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, our host, and for this one I'm joined by Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman, as we run through what has been another week in the GAA world. We have a few stories now, not quite your Mickey Hart going to Derry, but certainly another interesting week in the GAA. Matthew, obviously been doing a bit of work yourself there on covering the Cork Championship. Glen Rovers, of course, getting relegated. I haven't actually asked you your opinion on that. Some madness going on in the Cork Championships this year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Seamus. Yeah, I was actually reporting on a game last week, and it's actually mad. I was saying it off air. I was reporting on Clonakilty and Nemo Rangers last week, like the county champions and all that. And it was absolutely mad going to the media, meeting the likes of Finn Harty up there, Patrick Mulcahy, a load of other. Tony Lean was beside me as well, the editor from the Irish Examiner. It was just mad, really mad. And did that report, and that should be out tomorrow. The Southern Star, buy it if you haven't already. But yeah, Glen Rovers getting relegated. I mean, mad really. But you said it on Gaelic Game Fan TV recently. Maybe the people in Cork have been saying Glen Rovers have been on the downward trend for years, and I've probably said the same. Patrick Horgan, I know he's a brilliant player, and he did his utmost for the Glen this year. Like, you look at his scoring chart this year, I think he scored nearly 40 points. He did his utmost for Glen Rovers this year, but just the players weren't around him, unfortunately. Dean Brosnan has gone on a bit. Simon Kennefick, like, you wonder, he was Christy Ring's grandson. Everyone was talking about him during COVID. Where's he gone since? Like, it's unbelievable what's happened really for Glen Rovers. But deservedly, they've gone down. They've lost 4 games. Middleton and Blackrock, okay, they were contenders for the Hurling Championship, but they've lost to Bishopstown and Kanturk. And ultimately, that's not good enough to stay in the Cork Championship. And ultimately, that wasn't good enough to stay up. But yeah, interesting championship in the Hurling Championship. Like, you could have Sarsfield's winning it, so that'll be the 5th winner in the last 5 years. So Cork Hurling is probably the most competitive Hurling Championship over the last few years. As for the football, it's the usual suspects: St. Finbarr's, Castlehaven, Nemo Rangers. One of them will probably win it this year. I'm not discarding Douglas and Duhallow, but just it's the way it is at the moment. But yeah, interesting in the Cork Championships at the moment, but interesting up and down the country, like we were going to discuss awfully in the minute. Dublin is doing well at the moment. You look at Kerry with Dingle. Like, Dingle, I really fancy for the All-Ireland football this season. So yeah, a lot to get discussed.
Yeah, no doubt. And certainly Cork Hurling Championship, giving it the Tyrone Football Championship a run for its money in terms of competitiveness and, the crown switching hands quite a few times. So you have 4 stories that we'll run through. And so obviously the main one that you mentioned there was the only actual silverware that we are going to discuss on this show, which is, of course, Tullamore claiming the Offaly Football Championship. So this is a championship which, like, let's be honest, over the past few seasons, it has been dominated by Road. Road with that team with the McNamees, the Sullivans, players like that in it. Very, very strong over the last 2 years. But they got knocked out in the semi-final this year by Ferban, so you would be forgiven for thinking, God, Ferban probably should go on and win it. They didn't. Tullamore beat them in the final by a goal and 5 to 6 points. Now, the reason for that bad scoreline is apparently horrific conditions. But in a really dogfight of the game, Tullamore got the victory. Fair play to them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been bad conditions up and down the country, really. Like, the game I was at Nemo and Clonakilty, it was a waterlogged pitch, and the game probably should have gone in the head. I actually seen the Offaly Championship, this final. One of the managers was actually wearing Wellingtons. So that just epitomises how the weather dictated this game. It was incredible in its own way. And yeah, there is the question, Seamus, across the country, really, should games have gone ahead, certain games? Because clearly the pitches weren't in brilliant, pristine condition to hold these sorts of games. Like, this is a game being held on TG Carr, and people were saying that the Offaly Championship, it was a terrible championship, it was a terrible final. But, like, you have to look at the weather conditions. Like, it's the players, it was literally like playing in a swimming pool. You know, it was ridiculous in its own right. And congratulations to Tullamore to win it. I obviously wanted probably Ferban to win it because I had a Ferban player on the podcast, on my own podcast a few years ago, in Cian Johnson. I think he came on the other day, so he had a very good championship himself. But for Tullamore, brilliant achievement to win it. They didn't beat Road, but they still won the championship, and fair play to them for that. Like, I have to say as well, Seamus, when's the last time Road never won the Offaly Championship? I think it's a long time ago, really, because they've been absolutely dominant in Offaly over the last few years, and for them to lose the championship in this matter, it's incredible, you know. But But yeah, well done to Tullamore for winning the championship, and hard luck to Farban. And it'll be interesting to see how Tullamore do in the Leinster Championship this time around. I think in Carlow there's going to be Aero from Carlow going to be in it. There's going to be probably, you could say Kilmacud, you could say Raheny from Dublin, from Meath, I think it's Rathout and Summerhill in the final. So it'll be interesting to see how Tullamore get on in the Leinster Championship later on down the year.
Yeah, no, without doubt. I'm looking at it here in front of me. So Road started really winning from 2010, they pretty much, from 2008, they pretty much won it every 2 years. Like 2004, 2006, they did 3 in a row. They won it again in 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014, 16, 17, 18, 20, and 22. Tullamore won it in 2021. But like these are the superweights of Offaly Gaelic football, clearly, and obviously Tullamore putting themselves back on top of the mountain. Fair play to him. Luke Plunkett it was who struck the only goal in that game. Michael Brazil landing the insurance score, and there's a shot of him there with the trophy at the end of the game. So even in the pouring rain, great celebrations, great scenes there. Tullamore Offaly football champions for 2023. Now moving on, we have a championship that is a bit mental in its own right. It's kind of going under the radar as the Clare Hurling Championship. Ballyea are gone. So Tony Kelly's out of the championship there. And now Era O'Guinness are knocked out as well. They got knocked out by Clondara, who were brilliantly led by John Collins. I have it here. Feakle, Scariff, Crusheen, and Clonlara are the teams that are into the semi-finals. I might have butchered those names, but
I think you butchered 2 in particular. Scariff is one of them,
yeah.
and the other one is
Feakle.
Who are the other 2? Scariff, Clonlara.
Feakle and Crusheen.
Feakle is one. I think you said Feakle first. That was
Feakle.
there was one. Feakle and Crusheen, yeah. I think Feakle have Adam Hogan at wing back. He was my young player of the year personally, so it's a brilliant year for him personally. Scariff probably would be my favourites right now. Clondara look good with John Hannon, there, no doubt about it. But Scariff have a diamond in Mark Rogers. He scored 3-12, I think, over the weekend. What a performance! This guy, he's an absolutely incredible hurler. And he probably goes in under the radar as one of the best Munster hurlers in the whole province. So like a lot of people talk about Patrick Horgan and Aaron Gillan and Seamus Cannon and Austin Gleeson, who we'll talk about it a bit for very different reasons. But Mark Rogers, what a player he is. And maybe he's a bit underrated, look at the whole country, because the scores he puts up in nearly every game in the Clare Championship and in the All-Ireland Series for the Clare Inter-County side is absolutely incredible. 3-12 in one game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just mad scoring. And I think he actually scored all of them from play as well. Like, that was incredible reading from Mark Rogers, and it's probably one of the best club performances of the weekend.
Oh, definitely. Like, I mean, you can't do much better than that. I do agree with you that he's underrated, but I think partly because of that, because I think he's just hitting his prime now. I really think over the next 2 years, I think Mark Rogers will be one of the best forwards in the country now. I think he's had his building up, slotting into the team, getting a few minutes under his belt. I think now if they start him consistently and put him on the freeze consistently, I think we'll see the very best of Mark Rogers. And I think he could solve a problem area for Clare, because I think if you look back, like the freeze have been a consistent problem for Clare over the last 2 years. But looking at that now, 4 teams through, obviously the scores, the main ones, Clonlara beating Arrow Guinness by 114 to 14 points. Cushing beating Newmarket on Fergus by 3-7 to 1-7. They're the 2 that really stood out to me anyway, along with, of course, Rogers' performance. Clonlara's one, if I had to pick, because I genuinely did look at Arrow Guinness immediately and think, look, David Reedy, Shane O'Donnell, like that's a seriously strong team. And Ballyea being gone now, they might perk up and think it's ours to lose. Well, they've lost it. And like from this point now, 4 teams left. Which one of these would you be kind of looking at as being the team to potentially push on and win it?
It's a tough one, really. I actually said Clooney Queen would win it before the ball was even thrown in for the quarterfinals, and they lost as well. So like they lost, Arrow Guinness lost. It's such a hard championship to call, really, Seamus, isn't it? Just because of the influence of Mark Rogers, so I'm going to go for Scariff. I think they'll do it. I think Scariff are going to win the Clare Championship. Like, they're 2 games off it now, like every other team. Like, there's a chance there for them. There really is. Like, you look at Mark Rogers there, the form he's in. If he continues that form in the semi and the final, he'll be hard to stop. He really will be. Whereas John Conlon, I get he's a brilliant player, but he's either around the middle most of the time. Mark Rogers is a diamond up front for Scarf, and I think he might be the difference to get them over the line.
Very well said. I do think, like, look, he's a finisher. He's someone that guarantees them a certain amount of scores a game, and you can't buy that. You really can't, especially at this stage. But knowing the Clare Championship, probably Clonlara and Scariff probably won't make the final either. But we'll see how it goes. But in my own county then, of course, the Dublin football quarterfinals took place over the weekend, as well as the relegation playoffs. So obviously, bit of a sad note for myself. Firstly, my own club, Whitehall, Colmkill, we got relegated after losing to Lucan Sarsfields. That was a great game out in O'Toole Park. And then on top of that as well, Templeogue Sing Street got relegated after losing to St. Sylvester's. So Sylvester's and Lucan will stay up and play Senior A in Dublin next season. In the quarterfinals, Kilmacud Crokes beat Ballymun Kickham's 14 points to 10. Ballybowden St. Dennis beat Castleknock by 119 to 10 points. St. Jude's beat Coola in a really tight game, 211 to 210. And Raheny beat St. Vincent's by 14 points to a goal and 8. So some very interesting results there. And then some kind of predictable results in that Kilmacud Crokes win again. But what do you make of those 4 results?
First of all, with the Kilmacud and Ballymun game, like if there wasn't Liam on Clonakilty, I probably would have watched this Ballymun and Kilmacud game because it seemed like an absolute cracker. When you look at Kilmacud, All-Ireland champions, and Ballymun have been kind of the team you look at with the players they have. Dean Rock, the small brothers of Paddy and John. You have Philly McMahon there. You have Dylan Keating, who I've rated so long in club level. You look at Evan Comerford there. Like James McCarthy. Ballymun should be doing a lot better than they did. But in fairness, they put up a good test to Kilmacud and testing them really all the way. But Shane Walsh, from what I was hearing anyway, really stood up when it counted in this game. Like you have Paul Mannion and Shane Walsh there. In any club side, you're always going to do well. You have Craig Diaz in the middle. Theo Clancy's been a player I've really looked at over the last 2 years and thinking he could be in the Dublin team very easy. He was in the under-20s, I believe, last season. Yeah. So he's definitely moving up through the ladder. You look at Darren Mullen there, like Conor Ferris is a decent goalkeeper. So Kilmacud definitely have the base to get it done. I do agree with Aaron in recent weeks. He said that Kilmacud will probably get their toughest test in Dublin and not in Leinster. And I agree with him completely. I think the only teams in Leinster that could test them on a given day would probably be Naas and Rallote, maybe. I think they're probably the only two. The rest of them, I don't think they will, to be honest. But like you look at Tullamore, Shenmaliers, or whoever's going to come out of Wexford, Ayr Oak and Carlow, they're not going to test Kilmacud. No way. So I think Kilmacud will definitely get a lot of tests in Dublin. Ballybowden have been a team that you and Aaron have really talked about over the last few weeks. And you looked at Michael Darbacally's interview after the game on RT. It went through social media, obviously, and it was hilarious at the same time. And it just epitomises his love that he has for Ballymun. And in fairness, or Ballybowden, should I say. I'm getting mixed up with all the Ballys there. But like Ballybowden, what a performance from them for getting over the line against a good Castleknock team, like led by Kieran Kilkenny. They had some very good results I was hearing in the group stage in Dublin. And to beat them, that was a brilliant result for Ballybowden. St. Jude's, that was a good result for them over the weekend as well. And I think they've lost Coakley. He's gone back down to Carrigaline. I know they still have Pat Spillane, I think it is. So, and they probably still have Kevin McMenamin as well, unless he's retired. So if they still have him, so that's some very good ammunition that they have. And Pat Spillane is an unbelievable player to have around the middle of the park. And Raheny have been kind of a team that has been talked about by you and Aaron as maybe a dark horse. And you look at Brian Fenton in the middle. Like if you have him, he's definitely going to do well for them. I just wonder, will the loss of Brian Howard hurt them? Because if they had him, I mean, Raheny would be definitely up there for the Dublin Championship. But then again, you looked at over the last few years, I think Lucan Sarsfield reached the semis 1 year with relatively no Dublin players. I think Thomas Davis did over the last few years with no Dublin players. So you never know with this club championship. Like Raheny could turn it on like that and easily get to a Dublin final. But it's going to be very interesting to see the Dublin Championship now. But you'd have to feel the winner of the Dublin Championship will be the winner of the Leinster Championship, unless Rallote and Naas really put it up to them.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. On those games, like Crokes, Ballymun Kickham's, look, Ballymun were without James McCarthy. That's a massive blow. And look, they did put in a good performance, but Crokes have developed this thing of, I just said, like an aura. Like it's just an aura that you're just waiting for the knockout blow with them. It's like almost like Deontay Wilder being in a boxing match. You can be out You can be outplaying them for 40, 50 minutes and you know something's coming eventually. And they always strike when it really matters, and usually get the victory. Now, this Crokes team, they got that. Theo Clancy, you're absolutely right. I expect him to be Dublin's fullback over the next few years. Ballybowden against Castleknock, I was expecting that to be a cracker of a game. It just wasn't. Ballybowden were fantastic. Really put the game to bed early on. The only issue is with Ballybowden is that in the last 3 seasons, in the biggest game of their season, they've flopped. And they've absolutely flopped. So it's one of those things where you're looking at it and thinking, please don't do that again. Like last year, 2022, Nafina mopped the floor with them in the semi-final. 2021, the year before, Crokes bet them off the park. 2020, they made it to the Dublin final. Ballymun Kickham's beat them hands down. So the last 3 years, whenever they've been beaten badly. So it's one of those things where show me, don't tell me now at this point. Like beating Castleknock by that much is good, but Castleknock didn't really put it up to them. And I'm like, okay, they've looked pretty much flawless up until this point, beating Ballymun, beating Ballantyre, all this stuff. But I do, like, looking at the semi-finals, I probably would tip it to be a Kilmacud Crokes Ballybowden final because they're on opposite sides of the draw. Kilmacud play Raheny, Jude's play Ballybowden. Jude's are a dark horse. They brought in a lot of players, like Liam Connerton has really impressed me so far in the championship. He's been very, very solid. And Raheny beating St. Vincent's, Brian Fenton, you're absolutely right. Just in the last 10 minutes, Brian Fenton was basically like, every time Raheny had the ball, Brian Fenton was basically like, here, give me the ball. I'll take it from here. Like that type. And was absolutely pivotal and a monster at midfield for Raheny. And they're going to go and they're going to give it some crack against Kilmacud, but I do expect it to slightly be a Kilmacud versus Ballybowden final. If I was to tip that to be upsetting anyway, probably would tip Jude's to take out Ballybowden if I had to tip it to be different. But very fascinated to see how that happens. And like I said, you're doing the work with Cork, I'm doing the work with Dublin. It'd be very interesting to see those games coming up very, very soon. The final bit of news that we have to talk about, and this one for me just is a bit of a pity, to be honest. It's so obviously you've seen Austin Gleeson. He's opted out of the Waterford hurling panel for 2024. And as I was saying to you there, it's just a pity really for hurling fans in general that, you know, one of the most skilled, one of the most talented players in the game is not going to be playing at the highest level in 2024. What did you make of the news when you heard it break?
Like, initially I was shocked because Austin Gleeson is a brilliant player. He's been the staple of the Munster Championship over the last few seasons for Waterford especially. But as you thought about the news more, you think, okay, fine. I accept that Austin Gleeson, he'd be tired out. He was saying that his love's not in the game. That's what he said in the statement, I think it was. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, and I've been banging on about this over the last few years or so, the GA calendar. Like, it's non-stop. You look at the hurling with Mount Sion, and then you go into the Inter-County Championship when it's week in. Every single week, and maybe that took its toll on Austin Gleeson. Another thing I was hearing online was actually Davy Fitz. A lot of Waterford fans are saying Austin is right to step away because why would you want to be in the environment with David Fitzgerald as manager, which I think is a bit far. I think Davy Fitz is an unbelievable coach and he should be recognised and given his flowers without a doubt. He won the All-Ireland with clear fair play to him. But is there kind of something going on in Waterford at the moment behind the scenes? Because it doesn't seem like the Waterford players were happy even playing in the team last season with David Fitz at the wheel. I think Donald O'Callaghan, the former rugby player, was actually at the forefront and trying to change Austin Gleeson's mind, according to the Irish Examiner article written by John Fogarty. But it came to no avail. And I just wonder, is there something wrong with Waterford at the moment behind the scenes? Because there's a few Ballygunner players that are refusing to take part in the Waterford panel. Now you've Austin Gleeson stepping away. And maybe the win against Tipperary was a bit of a false dawn. Because winning against Tipperary, you were thinking, Waterford are back, they're going to do well next season. But now this has happened. With Austin Gleeson stepping away, you wonder how are they going to step it up next season. Like, you look to say Waterford, maybe there's a disarray behind the camp there. Tipperary, there seems to be disarray behind the camp. I'm living in Tip at the moment, and I know, talking to Tip people, that there's kind of a disarray with Liam Call in charge. A few with selectors have left and things like that. And I just wonder, is it getting even more clear that Limerick, Clare and Cork will be the top three next season? I just wonder. So it should be interesting next season, but it's a shame. It really is a shame because Austin Gleeson's an unbelievable hurler. And he's one of my favourite hurlers over the last few seasons. But just wonder, since he got that Hurler of the Year award, I think it was 16 or 17, his form has kind of just dropped ever since. And I just wonder, has the pressure got on him too much over the last few seasons?
You could definitely argue that, because like I feel like people were just on him all the time. Like I feel like Gleeson is one of those players that I feel like he kind of got the Aidan O'Shea treatment in a way. I do mean that in a certain extent, that like Gleeson and O'Shea, like I'm not comparing the type of player that they are, but I'm saying that they had a string of really, really good games. Obviously, Gleeson got to a higher level than O'Shea. They'd winning Hurler of the Year and Young Hurler of the Year in the same year. But my point is that people put stuff on them. People said, you have to be the leader. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to drag your team here. And maybe he just wasn't cut out for that. And not everybody is. Not everybody is Ken McGrath. Not everybody is Declan Hannon. And like, it's one of those things that, like, if you keep putting pressure on the guy to do things, and then he has to play, 100 games in the calendar per year, pretty much, as you were saying, it can take its toll on you. I'm speaking as someone that, even like growing up, I'd have games where I wouldn't want to play. And I love this sport, and I have games where I wouldn't want to play. So I imagine that happens to the players at the top level as well, especially when you feel like you're kind of being pressured into doing it. So I don't, and then on top of that, if you're looking at it with Gleeson as well, of prospects, like, will Waterford get out of the Munster Championship next season? I'd be pretty confident right now to say no. I would be stunned if they do. Because they've had such better prospects in previous years and not made it out. So what makes this year different? The only way they do, in my opinion, and even the Waterford win over Tip last year, I didn't necessarily see that as like a fantastic one. I just thought Tip dropped the absolute, like, I thought Tip just didn't turn up. So yeah, look, it's a shame, but I understand it. And I do hope that this isn't the last that we've seen of Gleeson.
I hope it's not either, because I remember that teenager that burst onto the scene, I think it was 2014 against Cork, with that goal in Seamus Stadium. Who could forget it? You know, ever since that day, I know I was a Cork fan, but I've always admired Austin Gleeson as a hurler since that day. He's just an incredible hurler. Like, even the point he got against Cork in the Munster semi-final, where he just flicks it up onto his hand with ease and puts it over on his knees. I mean, it's incredible, really. The goal he scored Croke Park against Cork was just magic. Magic. The performance he put in against Kilkenny in 2020 when they reached the All-Ireland final, brilliant. Against Tipperary, he was a leader in that game in 2021 quarter-final. Austin Gleeson has been a leader over the last few seasons for Waterford. And I just wonder, yeah, you make a very good point on the pressure being put on him, but I just wonder, when you look at the Waterford players around the pitch, Stephen Bennett, Desi Hutchinson, Jamie Barron, maybe some of them players have to take some responsibility, more responsibility than Austin Gleeson, in my honest opinion.
Yeah,
that's what
I do think, because I think he probably is a bit frustrated as well. Like, why isn't Stephen O'Keefe playing? Why isn't Barry Coughlin playing? Why isn't Pádraig Mahoney playing? Why are some of the best hurlers in Waterford not playing for the county team? Especially when 2022 they seemed like they were on the crest of a wave towards potentially challenging Limerick for the All-Ireland. Like, do you remember how that was being built up? So it is something that, like, and it's just simply put, I just don't have the drive to do it, really. That's what he told the Irish Examiner.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's brutally honest in himself, and I respect that. Like, if you, like, I wouldn't really be a fan of nonsense excuses. If you just come out and say, here, my head's not in it right now, that's fine. Head's not in it. It's an amateur game. You're not getting paid to participate in this game. You're doing it for the love. You're giving up a lot of your free time. So for anybody who'd even think about giving out to him for this or putting pressure on him to come back, you will only succeed in driving him further away, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's it, really. Like, you look at even the counties other than Waterford, is there players stepping away because the love's not in it? Like, you look at Limerick, you look at Clare, you look at Cork, you look at Kilkenny. Is there players around those counties that say, I'm not in it, the heart's not in it anymore, I'm stepping away? There's not. Yeah. And the reason because of that, really, is because the atmosphere in the camp in those counties is brilliant compared to Waterford's.
And they're not sticking it on players. They're not sticking that responsibility on players. Like, you don't see, for example, Dara Fitzgibbon break through and have his amazing season for Cork, and then all of a sudden it's, the whole team is tasked on his shoulders. Same thing with Mark Coleman, or same thing with players like that. You don't see the future of Cork hurling pinned on them the way that it felt like it was pinned on Austin Gleeson.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, I looked at Ballygunner over the last few seasons and I'm thinking, how is there not more players from that Ballygunner team on the Waterford team? For example, Mikey Manny, I think, stepped away a few years ago. Why was that?
Yeah.
Peter Hogan has been given a fair crack of the whip in terms of starting 15, and he's been a star for Ballygunner over the last few seasons. Patrick Fitzgerald has even looked out of place in the Waterford team last season. I know he's a young player, but he didn't look comfortable in that Waterford team compared to what he's done for Ballygunner.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, why is that? Maybe the atmosphere around the Waterford camp isn't pretty. And maybe the influence of Donegal Callan. I know he's very good at Irish for his family. He's a good rugby man. But is he good at taking a leaf in the GA book?
Mm-hmm.
Is he good, really? Because it doesn't seem that way over the last few months with Waterford. And with Davy Fitz as well, I know he said that win was important against Tipperary, but I definitely echo your point there on the Tipperary game. I think Tipperary it kind of went into the game expecting to win, and Waterford just wanted more. Like, I don't think it was like a revolutionary thing for Waterford to win that game. I just think Tick took the ball completely. And yeah, it's all turned for Waterford now. It's going to be very difficult to see how they get on Munster next season. Like, the likes of there's going to be a lot of pressure now. I tell you now, Seamus, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Patrick Fitzgerald next season.
Yeah.
As being saving grace. And it's a shame, really, because the guy's 18 or 19 years of age. And
that would be my point. My point would be, learn from your mistake. Don't put that same pressure on Patrick Fitzgerald. Let him play his hurling and get the best out of him. But yeah, so it's been a brief episode, but Matthew, I really, really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks so much for coming on again. And thanks so much to everybody who joined us for these stories. Obviously, we could talk about them till the cows come home. Gleeson has stepped away. That's a bit of a shame for everybody. Obviously, Tullamore Offaly champions, the Dublin quarterfinals and the Clare hurling quarterfinals. So we'll have another episode over the next few days. We'll have another episode on Sunday coming out, and we have much more content coming across the channel as well, so make sure that you stick around and check that out. So thank you so much for joining us for this stream. Until the next one, guys, here on Cluiche, take care.